all over the West Coast, there have been wildfires, devastating wildfires that have destroyed towns completely. The air here was so toxic, you just couldn't even be outside. As someone who teaches meteorology and climate change, I want to ask you right after this how it might be frustrating for those who will not see the actual science here. But some Trump supporters especially might say, oh, climate change has nothing to do with those fires. There's no way. Like, that's crazy. Climate change doesn't exist.
There was actually a big conspiracy about the Oregon fires here. Was that QAnon? I don't know
who started it. No.
Joe Rogan parroted it.
Yeah, he did, unfortunately.
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
So that's why you mentioned you were going to maybe go to one of the burn areas, and there was, militias in Oregon stopping people from returning to their homes because there was a belief that Antifa, whoever Antifa is, were actually starting the fires. So there's a big misconception that human-caused fires are not always arson. Human-caused just means that infrastructure required for humans to live there caused them. So a power line down is technically human-caused wildfire. So that's it. We have wildfire seasons here and in California every year. This wildfire season was unprecedented for a number of reasons. But there was this big conspiracy this year, given, I think, probably the election coming up. Again, parroted by Joe Rogan. Go ahead, you have thoughts on this, Ian?
They were listening to police scanners and they heard BLM come on. And so oh, Black Lives Matter, it's Antifa coming to burn down the place. It was Bureau of Land Management.
Oh.
I'm not even joking.
Oh,
Ultimate
wow.
ignorance.
Pathetic. Yeah.
Wow, absolutely.
So it's all intertwined this year. I didn't expect that. So.
And I think even a lot of people who understand that climate change is real, that it's an ever-present danger, might not fully understand what it all means. How did it happen? Like what kind of contribution did the climate make to those fires? So how would you explain to anyone wondering? Put your professor hat on.
And I apologize in advance. I get kind of deep in the weeds sometimes. But so every year we have a wildfire season. We've noticed notable temperature warming on the West Coast, anywhere from 2 to 4 degrees. For the last 40 years, since the 1970s. And if you take that temperature increases, therefore the amount of energy in the atmosphere increases. The amount of water vapor in the air has not increased, so you technically have a water deficit in the atmosphere. And you can take that water deficit and it directly correlates to the number of acres burned in that same 40-year period. So essentially there's just more energy to burn things, drier fuels because things are drier for longer periods of time. It's just like when you're starting a fire, do you want to start with wet wood or do you want nice dry wood? And then this season, we had an unseasonably cold pocket of air that came down from Canada, which is what brought snow to Denver way early in the season. So that cold front developed a high pressure on the east side of the mountains, and we had a low pressure off the coast. We had very warm temperatures here, which is very common for this time of year. And we developed an east wind. So wind blows from high pressure to low pressure. And so that brought wildfires that are every season, typically on the east side of the mountains in the dry desert areas, brought fires to this side, to the west side of the mountains, which is abnormal. And we had winds 50 to 70 miles per hour, which is the strongest wind event we've had in the months July, August, and September in the last 50 years. So really unprecedented winds. So that brought these wildfires here that we don't normally see. So something as simple as a 70-mile-an-hour wind tears down a power line. That's not abnormal. But when it's dry, that's going to cause a fire. Well, normally that happens in the winter when there is not the fuel present there. I don't know, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's good. Thank you for putting your teacher hat on because it's good. And I think it's important for people to understand that.
Yeah.
They don't have to know absolutely everything there is to know about climate change, but people can look and see what's happening, and it's very clear. You can see it. So
and you can relate it to when you're trying to start a campfire, you have very dry, you blow on it, right, to get it to get started. So you're seeing fires with those type of winds, 70 miles per hour, moving as much as 15 miles in a day. So you had crazy fast, like Sandy had to evacuate really quickly. Sandy High School was set up as an evacuation site. And then suddenly they were a level 2 evacuation, had to evacuate that in one day. So it did seem scary to a lot of people and unprecedented, but there's a scientific explanation for that.
It's interesting because the two topics that we're kind of focused on here with the climate change and the fires and also the protests, it's created this kind of this world where Donald Trump and right-wing people are able to say, okay, look at these leftists. Look, they're burning down the city. They're burning down the West Coast.
Yeah.
When the reality of the situation is, it's climate change. It's something that they completely deny.
Yeah.
That is actually the cause of the problem.
Yeah.
And I think it fuels the right wing to be able to blame leftists for, burning down the country, not being patriots. So it's interesting to kind of see how, look, we have to pay attention to science. We have to be real about this. We have to live in reality. And these Trump supporters just don't get it.
What's interesting is, the wildfires, they really impact the rural areas where they mostly are red voters, and it's impacting them personally. So then they look for who to blame instead of looking at structural, problems, which is what we need to address. So it's easier to blame the left for, oh, my house burned down, or I had to evacuate and I'm scared, instead of taking that fear and putting it into the progress we actually need. It's just fuels the same left versus right, Trump versus Antifa or whatever. Go ahead, Ian.
No, just Trump versus the world, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, talking about Bernie, I think a lot of people really, really feel obviously down about it for various reasons, but some are devastated and feel like, oh, it's not even worth it now because he was our one chance to maybe make a change here that could matter, and now he's gone. Yeah. So what would you say about that, either of you?
Go ahead, Ian.
Oh, no, you first.
I think, so I say don't have kids because I think our long-term prospects aren't great. That doesn't mean you don't fight to make the planet we have and the time we have here as best it can be. So when I say don't have kids, or that, we're basically fucked from a climate perspective, that doesn't mean I don't think we can improve our day-to-day lives here. Like things like a Green New Deal might not adequately address the climate issue, but it would provide tons of good paying jobs and improve the lives of people here. So I think local elections matter a lot. I do think the Democrats are a waste of time, but I think they're preferable to a Republican ultimately. So I think, still staying engaged and fighting for your life now to be the best it can be is absolutely worthwhile, particularly at a local level. Local politics are so important and actually impact your day-to-day life. Like, we have a housing crisis here. We have, police killing people in the streets. If we can address those things and make the time we have here more hospitable, I think it's a worthy cause. So just because Bernie lost doesn't mean I'm giving up on electoral politics. It just means I'll focus at the local level where change is quicker and more impactful, because my community matters to me,
Very, very well said. How about you? What now that Bernie's gone, you're still wearing the shirt. What next?
Like Sydney said, local politics, that's something that, you can be there, you can see, it's just, I don't know, then you feel engaged and that you're making a difference because you can see the difference. The DNC obviously slapped Bernie down. That was super disappointing. And it's even worse seeing Kamala Harris as the VP, and just they haven't, all the progressive policies they put forward, it's just trash. Like progressives are stuck with the DNC, and so they're just going to kick them around like dirt because they have to vote for them, and that really bothers me. So I'm voting green, I guess. They have to earn my vote. That's how I feel about it. It's not my fault if Donald Trump gets reelected. It's the DNC's because they didn't, appease the progressive base, or put anything that would make them want to vote for it, other than Donald Trump bad. Like they're both bad. So vote for what policy fits for you, and engage in local politics because change happens from the ground up.
Build community networks. Community networking is really important. Like we're seeing in our city now, right? Like we have a houseless community that's being failed by our city government, by our federal government, but when the community is engaged in addressing issues within the community, like with COVID now, you have a lot of people that are food insecure, and so the community has networks addressing that. Things like that make a difference in your day-to-day life. If you're disgusted with electoral politics, engage in your community, form a community organization where your whole goal, partisan bullshit aside, is just to help your neighbors when they need it. Like, I think that's where, like, my family has a saying where we joke, like, we all we got, because it's true. All you have is you and your neighbors. So focus on the very, very, local level. If that's just your few blocks in your neighborhood, get to know them. You can have a Trumper that turns into a burner that you didn't know had the possibility, but that infrastructure in your neighborhood is really important too, especially if we see things get really ugly, like it could get in the next couple of months. To have your neighbors to depend on would be really beneficial.
So that was wonderful. It was a great chat with both of you on so many topics that are, in our minds right now and are so important right now. Any last thoughts you want to leave the viewers with? Any organizations you like, or thoughts you have, or whatever you want to talk?
Organizations? I don't know.
Or like just whatever you.
Yeah, I just think engage locally if you're disenchanted with politics on a greater scale, and vote Ted Wheeler out for sake. Jeez, Portlanders. Sarah's the way to go. Like, if that's what I'm going to leave it with. Get Ted the out. Go ahead.
I'll give a shout out to the Socialist RA. I think it's very important for liberal gun owners to exercise their rights just as much as the right does,
Maybe they'll give them some respect.
Exactly.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.